Meditation is the key to happiness.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. The more you meditate, the more you feel self-assured, centered, grounded, connected. I can't say enough about the power of meditation and self-healing, meditation and self-actualization is the best way to put it.
Self-actualization and self-realization, which is basically one and the same. So most people don't realize this, so I'm here to tell you. The pinnacle of yoga is meditation. Yoga began as meditation. And if you look at the yogic philosophy, it's psychology. It's how to tame and train the mind. Now, before we get into the full meditational process, the yogis would say, practice this moral ethical code and then do these practices to guide yourself into meditation through transcending the senses, through being one-pointed in your concentration, through some sort of technique or some focus in order to get the mind clear, calm, or established in whatever you're observing.
Right. Wonderful. A lot of people can say that now, that's the now moment.
Yes. In fact, I gotta say this, Patanjali compiled what's called the Yoga Sutras many years after it had just been a verbal or oral tradition, and he decided to compile it and to write it down into a book form. And the very first word is now. Now we come to the teachings of yoga.
Yes.
So it's a very important word.
It absolutely is. I think the practice of meditation can be pretty daunting for most people. They feel like their mind is racing 24/7. They don't think they're ever going to get through that. You will. You will get through and get to a place where you can drop in and literally shut those thoughts down immediately.
It's really just like running a race. If you're going to run a race, you're not just going to sign up and show up that day and expect to run 26 miles.
Right.
Just like you can't sit down for 30 minutes and expect yourself for the first time to be able to meditate. It does require training.
So start off slow.
It's a discipline. It's practice, practice, practice. In fact, all through the Yoga Sutras, the terms that keep coming up is practice and non-attachment, practice and non-attachment, practice and non-attachment, practice and non-attachment. And that's what we're doing when we're sitting to meditate and we have all these things wanting to come to the forefront of our mind. We practice non-judgment, non-attachment, let it continue, and we drop back into the space in between.
Right. And this is what they call the observer also. So you actually start to observe the thoughts. Okay, so when you're practicing meditation and you initially start with all these thoughts coming back, that non-attachment piece to me means don't react, don't emotionally start to have huge, like, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to do it, da, da, da. Allow the thought to just flow through. And then the other thing is you will fall back and find this in-between space, that separation between the thoughts that are actually going on a ticker tape and happening very randomly. What do they say, 90,000 thoughts a day? So our non-attachment place is to not emotionally react or get up and start writing your to-do list down or doing any of the things to distract you. You become the observer and you realize you're not actually your thoughts. So that's the first step of meditation. And then the second step is really finding this place of calm and silence. And I feel like it's kind of like the most creative space you can ever be in. It's like, such a deep place of connection.
Yeah.
Breath is one of the keys to leading yourself to this place of silence. Do not give yourself a lot of judgments. Just feel your breath.
That is one of the simplest
And easiest.
And
effective.
It's very effective, and it's very easy because the breath is always there. The breath can anchor you into that now moment, and just observing the in and the outflow of the breath is and can be your technique.
Yep, and that's all you need.
To quiet the mind.
Just feeling the sensations of the breath. And you have a choice. You can feel them in your nose, you can feel them in your throat, you can feel them in your chest. You have options of where you can feel this.
Yeah, and I think, I've been trained to do formal meditation. I spoke in one of the episodes about how I learned to meditate, through yoga and through yoga teacher training specifically. And all of that was either mantra-based, which was repeating a certain word or phrase, or it was complete silence. But there's so many other ways to meditate. If you are focused in the now moment and you're practicing mindfulness as you're doing something, whether it's washing the dishes or sweeping the floor, petting your dog, or there's so many different things. Like, for instance, my grandmother, I feel like her meditation was quilting. And she had this beautiful way of putting together quilts, which was really an art form. Mm-hmm. And she would sit quietly and just sew all these pieces of material together, or just snapping the beans from the garden, or canning. I see my boyfriend do this every day. He's a guitar player, and the first thing he does after his cup of coffee is he straps on the guitar, and he has to have that guitar in his hands. And funny enough, when he was on the road once, I bought him some mala beads, and I thought, I'm going to teach him the tangible way to meditate, which is having, mala beads in your hand and doing one breath at a time, one bead at a time. And he said he did it for several days. He didn't continue. And here's why. He said when he just sits down to play the guitar, not when he's looking at charts or anything of that nature, but when he's just sitting to play, mm-hmm. He said that gets him into the same meditational space that the mala beads did for him.
Absolutely. That's his tool.
Yeah.
So you are welcome to have a tool, and you can even start. I'm encouraging you to notice, what tool do you use that causes your mind to be still? An exercise?
It can be a moving meditation, because a lot of runners will say they get into
absolutely
a place of meditation when they're running. Yoga, Tai Chi, any of these type of healing arts, it's very breath oriented, and you're syncing movement with breath. So it's a moving, breathing meditation.
Mm-hmm. Meditation can also be used as a time to not only gather yourself together and become still, but it can also be a time where you ask a question or reflect. Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily get the answer right there in meditation all the time. Sometimes when I've meditated, I've paid attention to myself, I've stilled my mind, and then I might have just been like, I need deeper wisdom concerning this topic. And I don't get this huge bunch of information, but I can guarantee you later in that day, that information will come to me. It's usually at the grocery store. Another place where I might be silent or just focusing on getting groceries and not really thinking about much, like a subconscious kind of run of a day, and boom, I'll get this huge hit. The more I meditate, the more readily those things come to me. Do you ever sit down to actually ask a question during meditation?
Not as much, but I have. Mm-hmm. And I have a great example of this. There's this place called Gethsemane Monastery up in Trappist, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And when I first discovered it, it was from some students of mine who had done silent retreats there. And I had booked a silent retreat because I was trying to get clarity on whether or not I should get divorced. And I kept, flip-flopping back and forth. And I thought, I'm going to use the silent retreat and do a lot of meditation to get my answer.
To be very clear.
Yeah, so when I left Nashville, I thought, I'm going to turn my phone off. I'm not going to listen to the radio. I'm going to start the silent meditation now. And so it was about 3 hours. When I parked my car at the monastery, I turned off the ignition. I was looking at the monastery and I got a definitive yes.
Beautiful.
And so then I got to enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Right? And you focused on other things.
Yeah.
And that was the silence of meditation and being with yourself. There is nothing like the security that one feels after being a practice meditator. When you are having a lot of anxiety and stress, one of your greatest assets or tools is to drop in and connect to your heart. A lot of people mistake like feeling anxiety is this like, I don't want to sit with my anxiety. Well, actually, your anxiety is because you're disconnected from your heart and you're outside of your body and you're paying more attention to everything else going out here. The anxiety is created, again, by something that's pulled you away from your heart center or your internal focus. So if you meditate, it actually decreases anxiety significantly. And they're doing a ton of studies that show that direct correlation between a person that meditates and decreased anxiety.
Decreased anxiety, decreased depression.
Yep.
It lowers blood pressure. And the most recent study that I found really fascinating is, they do these group studies between people who meditate and people who don't. And what they've discovered is with the regular meditation, you can actually turn on, okay, help me out here, the positive chromosomes and dim the ones that can lead to illness and disease.
You can. Actually, there are these markers on your chromosomes or your DNA strands that are affected in by your lifestyle. A lot of people believed that your chromosomes kind of set your personality and all the traits into motion, and that our physical world or our environment today doesn't have an effect on your DNA and how it plays out in your body. And they have found that it does. And comments and practices and alcohol abuse or drug abuse or what you eat actually do affect how a chromosome will
express itself
in your body. So meditation has one of these direct effects of being able to rest and synthesize yourself and have place of health. It's directly, to me, related to good health. That's another, thank you for saying that and remembering that, because that is so important. There are direct health benefits from meditating. Lower blood pressure is one of the biggest markers. Less strokes. I would go as far as saying less heart attacks. I don't know what study that's on, but I'm sure all of these health things, because you're focused and becoming aware, and the more you meditate, the easier it is for your desire to take care of yourself and to be present with yourself.
Yeah, if you think that, they say stress is the leading cause of disease.
Yes.
So if meditation heavily reduces stress levels.
And cortisol, that's measured. They measure the cortisol levels, and that decreases significantly in meditators.
Yeah, so why not incorporate that into your life? And the excuses that we often hear is, I can't meditate, I think too much. The brain is supposed to think.
Right.
We all think too much. It's about the discipline and learning some control, self-control.
Yeah, and to step back from those constant mind thoughts. We're not saying...
In fact, I got to say this really quick.
Yes,
the
absolutely.
second verse of Yoga Sutras, because I already mentioned the first one, and now we come to the teachings of yoga. The second verse is Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means yoga is the neutralization of all the fluctuations that are happening in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
So it's calming the current of the mind.
Absolutely. Okay, so we know that the more you meditate, the less stress you feel, the ability to really step back from your thoughts, to have clear thinking, and your intuition increases. Your health benefits increase because the cortisol levels are down, and anxiety decreases.
And that's just a few. There's actually way more benefits that you can Google.
It's so studied. Yeah. I encourage you to start off meditating 5 minutes a day and in the morning. I also encourage you to do it between work and seeing your family. This is a critical moment where I've used meditation to really change my life. After I'm working, I've been astro traveling and doing a number of out-of-body things and being aware of somebody else's truth and not my own. And I love getting back to my body before I see my family. So this leads us to a couple of affirmations I'd like to say, and then perhaps you could lead our meditation today.
Sure.
It is, I love who I am.
I love who I am.
I love being in my body.
I love being in my body.
And I call all of myself back to my center.
I call all of myself back to my center.
I am.
All right. We'll sit for a moment together. And just as we were talking about consciousness and collective consciousness, there's meditation, and then there's group or collective meditation. So us doing this together is even more powerful. So let's come to a comfortable seat. Let's roll the shoulders up towards the ears and then exhale down and back. And once you roll the shoulders back, just allow the heart to become buoyant upon the wave of the breath. Developing a deep, rhythmic breath and just observing your in and out flow for a moment. Letting go of each thought as they arise up to the forefront of your mind. Coming back to observe the breath, staying in the now. Affirming again, I love who I am. And I am calling all of my pieces back home to my heart. I am loved. And since I mentioned mantras, I'm going to add in a mantra. And it's aham prima. Aham prima. Aham prima. You can say it aloud in a whisper or silently within. And it means I am divine love. I am pure love. Simplified to I am love. Aham prima. Aham prima. And feel free to continue.